All right. Ah, there we go. Perfect timing. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back to Dragon Age Inquisition. So last time we just finished our very awkward judgment of Blackwell. That gave us a couple of extra missions and things to do on the big map. We also have some things to do, like I said, in the hinterlands. So that is some of the stuff that we're going to be doing this week. Chatting with some of our companions and out doing some side quests in the world while chatting about things the game brings up or chatting about things that the world brings up. Because also, oh boy, have the last week or so brought up a lot in the world. So there's plenty to talk about, both from a sort of that's interesting render, both from a lot to talk about, even Detrick, from a sort of current events casual perspective, but then also from a more deep philosophical perspective. There's a lot going on that's really philosophically interesting. One silly thing to start with, I was really thinking very hard about if you're in the Discord server, or if you've been following the food channel in there, I have recently discovered a fantastic, phenomenal new beverage to make with coffee. Now, I am not an experimenter when it comes to coffee type beverages. As you may know, I only half jokingly hold that iced coffee. God, disgusted just thinking about it. Is an abomination before the Lord, a violation of the natural law. All of those nasty, nasty things shouldn't exist. Now, I can distinguish that from things like frozen coffee or coffee flavored things. Oh, Michael wants to go to bed. Or he doesn't want to go to bed. He wants to go to bed. Things like that. I'm not an experimenter when it comes to coffee. I'm really not. It's not my thing. But I tried this just out of morbid curiosity because when I found this recipe somewhere, I was like, there's no way. It sounds horrifying. Um, Matthew suggests coffee and Coke. I'm not a fan of Coke. So I can't imagine I would like coffee and Coke, but I could understand the appeal of that one, at least. I could definitely understand the appeal of that one. But this thing I really thought that I was just going to be wasting the ingredients. I was probably going to throw it away. Oh my gosh, excuse me again. I honestly probably thought I was going to throw it away. But no, I've made it 3 times now. It's fantastic. It is a shot of espresso mixed in with a cup of orange juice. Try it. Trust me on this one. I didn't tonight because I will say that, especially when I'm talking a lot, it gives my throat a little bit of scratchy just from the acidity of it. But, oh man. This by contrast to just ordinary coffee. I was just saying when I didn't do this tonight. Coca-Cola, I mean. They're both whatever. I mean, coffee and the other kind of Coke, I'm sure that was all the rage in the 70s. Because really, just put those two things together, and I mean, what else would you do in office cubicles in the 70s other than, like, inappropriate workplace sex on a desk? I mean, it's that or coffee and Coke. But you mean Coca-Cola? Yeah, like I said, I can see that working. It's just I'm not a fan of Coke, not a fan of cola in general. But no, coffee and orange juice, not coffee, espresso and orange juice. Man, it works. Like I said, I totally thought that I was going to try this, take a sip, and then throw the rest away. I tried it, I took a sip, I was shocked. I was appalled how much I actually liked it. It's wrong. But it's really good. Matthew says, I use orange juice with instant coffee, protein powder, and peanut butter powder. Breakfast or champions. Really? Peanut butter powder. Okay, okay. Yeah, yeah, I can see that. All right. See? I'm not alone in my psychosis. And it's always good to be accompanied in your crazy, nonsensical ideas like this. Like I said, really, just give it a try. If you're skeptical, go for it. Let's see how Blackwell is dealing with everything.
How shall I refer to you? Rainier or Blackwall?
I've gotten used to Blackwall. Perhaps we could treat it as less of a name and more of a title. Almost like Inquisitor. Reminds me of what I ought to be.
I like that.
Everyone needs something to aspire to.
Exactly. I'm glad you understand.
Should I turn the in-game volume up a bit? If it's a little quiet, let me know. I'll turn that up.
Let's talk about you. The truth, this time.
I suppose I owe you that.
Yeah, a little bit. First of all, just the most disgusting thing imaginable.
So, you're actually Orlesian.
Well, didn't I say that I was from Markham in the Free Marches? I didn't lie about that. I spent my childhood there, and then Olay called to me. Markham seemed lifeless, colorless in comparison.
Oh, Tetrick is finally off of coffee, caffeine more specifically. Nearly a month at this point, my whole mind feels so much calmer. I maybe ought to cut back on it, to be fair. I've done it before. I've cut back on coffee before, but I enjoy it. I really do. A large part of it is not, part of it is withdrawal symptoms and headaches and such. But beyond that, I just like coffee. It's tasty. I've tried, don't tell me decaf. Doesn't taste the same. Doesn't taste the same. I'll do it sometimes, I guess, if need arises, but it's better than nothing. But, yeah. Used coffee beans, that's what decaf is.
Tell me about your time as a soldier.
I served in the Imperial Army. I distinguished myself there, earned respect, the loyalty of my men, and then I threw it all away. Betrayed my own side for gold. Only gold.
You were on the run from the authorities, weren't you?
Yes. I made my living as a hired sword. Spent most of my coin on drink. I never stayed in one place for long. Had to keep moving. I got to see much of Olay that way. I saw what men like me had done to this great empire. It was a shock. Seeing it up close. Hearing the stories. It's one thing to hear the news from afar. Another to actually be there.
I do have to say, though, having cut out coffee before Lent a couple of years ago, if I recall, it's tough. So mad respect. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's an addiction. Like, no matter what anybody says, I mean, it's an addiction. Like, just like anything, just like any other kind of chemical addiction. And so, cutting it out like that, and especially if, like you say, it's really helping you, all the better. All the better. Because, I mean, for me, it really, the issue, I think, is, I'm not sure, but I think the primary issue is just the withdrawal symptoms and stuff. Just simply the dependence. Not so much the what I would be otherwise kind of thing. I don't know. But, yeah, good on you. Good on you if you can do that.
Did you have a family? A wife? Children?
No. I've never been suited to that kind of life. Maybe I don't deserve it.
We'll continue this another time.
All right. Yeah, well. Yeah, we did a lot of companion type side quests and stories and things last time. We helped out Cole to become a little bit more human, a little bit less of a spirit. We found out that Blackwell was really a traitorous Orlesian general.
Inquisitor.
Or, not general, commander? Officer of some sort. Doing something awful. Basically, he ordered the assassination of the Duke he was supposed to be protecting, and then ran away and let his men take the fall for it. Not nice things. But we basically are forgiving on the condition that he is turning things around and working to atone and such. So thanks, I appreciate it. Way too manic and too anxious, which fed my irritability, insecurity, etc. Very much personal choice. Yeah, and I mean,
with the Civil War over, Orlais is focusing on rebuilding.
There is still trouble in the Dales. We've had no news from the Exalted Plains for weeks.
I mean, it really is that some people just deal with different things like that differently. There are people who can. There are people who can, like, every once in a while have a beer, for example, and it not be a problem. And yet there are people who, as soon as one drop of alcohol touches their lips, they're on a binge. Alcoholics, right? And that's not always in your control. Sometimes choices can contribute to it, but a lot of times that's not in your control. And so it's perfectly reasonable to say that for some people, the right amount to drink, whether that's alcohol or coffee or anything else, or the right amount of something to do, might just be zero, right? The virtue of moderation could be zero for some people, and there's nothing contradictory about saying that, but then also saying that for other people, the amount might be more than zero to do moderately, right? So, I mean, for me to cut out coffee entirely would almost be immoderate of me. Now, to cut down the amount of coffee I drink would probably be healthy, realistically. And that's something I should probably move towards. I have been, now that the semester's wrapping up. I've been cutting it back to, unless I'm streaming, I pretty much just doing a cup of coffee a day instead of like 2 or 3 or more. Or actually, technically, I'm even cutting it down this time because this is a 3-cup mug, and I did fill this, but I only had a half cup coffee earlier today, whereas usually on Thursdays, when I'm at school during the day, I drink between 2 and 4 cups of coffee. Then I come home and have one of these for the stream. So, yeah, I'm cutting back. Yeah, and like I said, but the correct amount of anything, per the virtue of moderation, or temperance, if you want to call it, varies from person to person, depending on our temperament, depending on our particular constitution, let's say, and depending on our habits. You might have a particular bad habit that you need to break, and the only way to break it is cold turkey, so to speak. Okay, good, do that. And more power to you if you can. But some people can do certain things with in their moderate level of doing something is different than zero. And the same goes for most of the sort of like addictive or semi-addictive things that we think of as vices or whatever, whether that's alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, caffeine, soda, snacks, bacon jerky, whatever it is. The amount in moderation for different people can differ, and that's perfectly reasonable. And that's an interesting thing in terms of ethics, because ethics is supposed to be universalizable, but then, I mean, almost every ethical theory holds to this. But then, Aristotle made note that ethics is the science of particularizing universal principles. So taking universal principles and then applying them to particular situations, and that means your answers, your results, are necessarily going to be different in different situations. Because, yes, you're taking universal principles, and that is the important starting place, but then you are particularizing them necessarily. That's what makes it ethics, and that's what distinguishes ethics from metaethics. Metaethics is the universal principles and what justifies them. Ethics, per se, is applied. Is applying those ethical principles to particular concrete situations. In fact, I'll put a link in the description to a video that I had about on ethical principles and how they are applied and how they are misapplied. And it's also you'll notice that I have a PayPal and a Ko-fi, which, I mean, right over there. If you, I will say, use this as an opportunity. If you find value from these streams, I would appreciate you sharing some of that value back to me. Pay what you want and what you feel like you're getting from this. I always appreciate that sort of thing. But the reason I have that instead of PayPal, or sorry, this is PayPal basically. The reason I have that instead of Patreon, because I did start a Patreon a while ago. The reason I got rid of it relatively shortly is because Patreon basically was the first and the most egregious of the tech companies who abandoned all pretense of consistent moral principles and started making their ethical decisions purely on the basis of well, it's hard exactly to tell what. Whim, really, is really the most I can take from it. And this goes back to this really spiraled crazy when they back when they originally banned was it Lauren Southern and Sargon of Akkad and a few other people for stuff that they were doing that had nothing to do with their Patreon platform. It was basically, we don't like these people, we don't like what they do and who they are, and so they're not allowed to use our platform without any consistency, without any rule following, and specifically they were unable, representatives of Patreon were unable to articulate what it was that someone had to do to avoid their fate. And this was especially when Matt Christensen, another YouTuber I follow pretty well, he's a fantastic political commentator. He pointed this out because he had a conversation with a Patreon representative about this, and he was basically asking, well, what assurances can you give me that this isn't going to happen to me arbitrarily? And they basically said, well, don't do that kind of stuff. And he was like, okay, what kind of stuff specifically? And the representative that was basically waffling about, well, don't do, well, and it's really a case-by-case basis, right? And could not possibly give a coherent answer, because there is no coherent answer. It's not about applying principles to concrete situations. It's about, who are we targeting? Do we like them or do we not? It's entirely particularist, and it's entirely arbitrary, and it's entirely emotivist. It's not ethical. I might also hold on. So I've mentioned before, C.S. Lewis wrote a book. I have it right here. I have it right here. This book, The Abolition of Man. The first chapter of which I have. Okay, so there's this channel called C.S. Lewis Doodle, and he makes he does illustrations for the audiobooks of a lot of C.S. Lewis's writings, like live illustrations, like kinetic typography, but hand drawn. Really well done. I absolutely love it. It's fantastic. The problem is that he got hit unexpectedly and arbitrarily and probably illegally by the owner of the audiobook recordings. Not of the texts, but of the audiobook recordings that he was using. And a bunch of his stuff. He had to take down a bunch of his stuff. So I managed to find some in the archives, in Internet Archive. And I've been very slowly trying to rebuild something of the collection accessibly. And so currently I have one of them up as unlisted. So the copytism bots don't come after me. But I might be able to do some more. And another one I want to put up, so the first one I have up is the first chapter of that book, called Men Without Chests, which addresses this issue to a degree, but then further, another essay that he wrote in another text, I think it was in God in the Dock, could be wrong about that, it's called The Poison of Subjectivism. I think I'll upload that one next and hope that the copytism bots don't hit it when it's unlisted. You'll be able to find it in the description here, on the Discord, possibly on my Facebook page at some point. So look forward to that. It's very relevant to this discussion, and it's something that it's one of those things that C.S. Lewis wrote that is that he wrote. I will say on this note, he wrote some of the most important philosophical texts of the 20th century, in the running with things like papal encyclicals like Fides et Ratio Humanae Vitae, mostly because they were so prescient. Michael says, I haven't touched Patreon since some of their execs did a live stream full of crocodile tears claiming their heavy-handed moderation was for your own good. We're trying to do the right thing. God, I remember that. That was awful. That was so awful. That was unbelievable. Jack, whatever his name is. Not Twitter Jack, but yeah. Oh man, that was awful. No, I remember that. I remember that very distinctly because that was right after all this started happening, and they were hemorrhaging users. Their user base dropped by like 40% or something. It was insane. Good, by the way, but it was unexpected. I didn't expect it to drop like that. I mean, it's frankly, it's a lot like Disney's stock prices recently. Um, Disney's market share, market value dropped like, was it 25% in the last couple of weeks? I wonder why. Which I want to talk about that a little bit, because the whole Florida versus Disney thing, or DeSantis versus Disney thing, is fascinating, and heroes and villains on, well, at least villains on both sides, but heroes really are stuck to one side, at least for the time being. I'll talk about that at some point if you guys are interested in my take on the matter. But a letter written in fine hand and lightly scented, signed by Josephine. The issue of Tom Rainier has been settled, but his deception has had far-reaching consequences. Had we not used the Grey Warden treaties, we might not have found ourselves in so awkward a position. As it is, I receive daily messages from all quarters demanding we make reparations. We must do something. Excuse me. I'm sorry, did we embarrass a duchess at a soiree by stepping on her gown, or was the sky torn open and haven beset by an ancient darkspawn magister? We needed the gold. We needed the men. You would have persuaded someone to part with them, with or without the treaties. We're not making reparations for doing what we had to do. What no one else could have done. Don't forget, we are now allied with the Wardens. We had no authority to conscript before, we do now. That's really sketchy. We step forward, not back. No apologies. What happened with the Wardens gives us more authority than ever to use the treaties. Do we want the Inquisition to survive beyond Corypheus' defeat? We won't always be at war. Why alienate allies when it would take so little to appease them? Let us return what was taken under false pretense and put these treaties aside. I mean, to be fair, we didn't know that it was false pretense. That's all Blackwell's fault. But I mean, listen, I love Cullen being a badass. I love Cullen being all like being all harsh and such. It's great, and he's doing his job as you know the protector sort of thing. But this could go poorly, and Josephine has a point, especially about long-term thinking. We are at a relatively stable point. We're sending forces south to the Arbor Wilds, but things are not quite as urgent as they were. So let's go and let's make peace.
Let us begin.
We sent emissaries with formal apologies. We returned all that could be returned. We paid in kind for what we could not. Liliana will store the Grey Warden treaties in Skyhold archives in remembrance of mistakes made and lessons learned. Yeah. I mean, mistakes made really just means deceptions by Blackwell, but whatever. Alrighty then. Now, I'll also say, I have already talked about the Disney thing. Even their special Reedy Creek development zone. That whole thing. I've talked about that on the stream before, so if I would just be reiterating, I don't necessarily need to. But it is all certainly fascinating. Okay, let's see. We need to do not the Druffalo, because that's that rift. And that rift is actually quite difficult. No. Maybe that. What's this? Yeah, we can bring Vivienne with that. Cave. Lyrium. Okay, we can do that at some point too. We'll eventually do that. We'll probably do that at some point tonight. Oh man, there's a lot to do down here. Mercenary Fortress, that. Yeah, we'll need to bring Dorian for that. Okay, so here's what we'll do. We'll go here, bring Vivienne. She can come with us down here as well. The mage caches. And then we will go back over there, the corner down there, and we'll bring down here Dorian. Switch out our mage. Go take out that fortress. Yeah, that'll work. We'll wait on Varric. We'll bring Cassandra, Blackwell, Vivienne. For now. That'll work. That'll work. Maybe I should have brought. Whatever. It's decided. It's decided. Lia jacta est. Anyway. So that's it's one of the things in the news, the big Disney stuff. That I've always been a huge fan of Disney, and even until relatively recently, and I have to say over the last maybe 10 years or so, I've been my like for Disney as a company has gradually shaken. Before that, I always was a huge fan of Disney, the company in general, and then also a lot of what they do in particular, and the theme parks and the movies and this and all that stuff. I still think that Walt Disney was brilliant, absolutely brilliant, incredible storyteller, incredible businessman, and all around just an incredibly wholesome guy. But that's not what we're looking at anymore. And I say I really think that like the first. Let me give you an example. When Disney bought Lucasfilm and bought Star Wars, I was incredibly optimistic. Primarily because at the time, Disney had been working very, very closely with Lucasfilm for a very long time on a lot of things. Most notably the Star Wars weekends at Walt Disney World. This was basically an annual Star Wars event that basically turned all of MGM Studios and what became Hollywood Studios into just a massive, basically a Star Wars convention for several weeks out of the year, every year. And it was great. I went every year, sometimes multiple times. And I had thought, even at the time, like before the buyout happened, I even said things like, well, you know what? Someone like Disney, ironic, I thought somebody like Disney should be the ones who are allowed to make more Star Wars movies. Because I think they would do a great job. They're fantastic at weaving a story together. They would respect the material. They have all of the people they would need to do it justice and all of that. And I was thinking, it would have been great. Now we've seen it happen, and that's clearly not what happened. But you can see why I would think that. And it's primarily because I was looking at what they had done with Star Wars, not even having the IP, so to speak. All that had been indicated is that they were really dedicated to the fans and to the people who loved Star Wars and to bring it all together. Of course, that's turned around. And now I have to wonder if it has been a change in the company. Change in the CEO from Iger to Chapek, switching of the Bobs, so to speak. Or if it was there all along. The insidiousness was there all along, and it was well hidden, let's say, comparatively. Okay, not the goat. There we go. Anyway, yeah, I don't actually know whether there was something wrong sitting at the back there of Disney all along, or if it was really a change. I'm not sure. I can't say. Can't say with any real certainty. There we go. But in any case, like I said, I really thought that they would have the resources and the dedication to really make it happen and do a great job with more Star Wars movies. Oops. Then, when they actually bought it, when they actually took over, Star Wars Weekends continued for a little while. There was the announcement about nuking the EU. Switching it over to Legends, and I was apprehensive. I gotta admit, I was very apprehensive, but I was still optimistic. Now, the reason I was still optimistic is because I acknowledged that, look, if they were going to be doing movies going forward after Endor, they couldn't perfectly adapt. There was no way that they could perfectly adapt the existing source material. At most, they could draw inspiration from it, let's say. Really? I have a lightning staff? Fine. There we go. That'll do. She should have fire. Anyway, that's right, I need to make her a new Blade of Tadarian. Shades. There we go. Yeah, I thought that the whole nuking the EU thing was tragic, but I believed them when they said that it was so that they could tell new stories and tell them consistently. With a whole new, completely internally consistent world. I was maybe naive. Maybe I was naive. But what we've seen since then is the opposite of everything that they promised. Of course it was.
More supplies.
But I mean, that seems to be at this point really par for the course. Okay, that actually seems pretty par for the course as far as
Red lyrium and there would be
smash it with the cheese. Come on, I can't. Really? Can't smash it with the cheese. Fine. Anyway. Nice. Alright, let's go. There we go. I hate that I have to do that. There. Anyway. Yeah, I was probably a bit naive about Disney and about Star Wars, but also, I mean, now looking at more recent developments, but Disney in general. And I'll even say that this applies to Okay. Disney and their Reedy Creek development zone. They're basically cool little privately owned, privately governed region that really is just so cool. I even wrote a paper about it early in grad school for a philosophy of law class, using it as a key example of private polycentric legal frameworks, of delegation of state power rather than to state entities to private entities. And that this sort of thing is perfectly functional.
Have you seen otherwise?
True enough.
Or it could be perfectly functional. Unless and until it's not. And unfortunately, the only time here and now it becomes non-functional is when the private actors involved start getting overly involved in the political process. And usually in a negative way. Matthew says Amazon's version of Lord of the Rings, Disney's version of Marvel and Star Wars, various other comic books, video games, etc. Yeah. All of that
I found
is
some of
just...
the apostate supply stores. I can mark the locations for you.
I'll get out there myself with a few men and pick them up. This will keep a lot more refugees alive next time it snows.
Like Eric July likes to call it, DC. At this point stands for Dead Company. Because really, what do they have left? Look what the comics are doing right now. They're just falling apart. They are not telling compelling stories. They are intentionally avoiding telling stories with their actual good, and popular, and interesting characters. And I mean, we see the issues with their movies, but even their comics are just collapsing. And their comics have probably been collapsing for longer than the movies have been, and that definitely applies to Marvel. We saw, the collapse, the slow, gradual degradation and collapse of Marvel Comics over the last, I don't know, half decade at least, since 2014, 2015, when they started to bring in, first of all, a lot of tokenized characters, but then also a lot of these like new heroes who were just uninteresting versions of old heroes. And then doing weird things with their established characters, too. Detrick says they wanted authors and directors who were relatively inexpensive, like Wendig, or whom they could control, like Ryan Johnson. Yeah, the idea of a Disney city-state sounds cool. Yeah, it was. It existed. It was really cool. It works like a charm. Then they go evil. Oh, man. But, like, it's weird that it worked for 60 years. I mean, it's not that weird, really. From a theoretical perspective, it's not that weird that it worked for 60 years. Of course it worked for 60 years. It's a private, independent city-state that runs itself and is quite profitable on its own. Of course. Why would that not work? And part of the reason it works is because they were independent and free of all sorts of permits and permissions and regulations and all that sort of stuff that just otherwise prevent anything interesting from happening. Hey, Colleen. Hello. Talking about Disney. Unfortunately, not in a good way. I kind of. Because I will say that it works so much better than, say, California. Like, Disneyland is... that's troubling. Did they get him? Is that it? Yeah, that was it. Okay. I love rogue damage output. Crazy. Anyway. Like I was saying, it's the most interesting part for me is that it provided such an incredible, clear example of what amounts to an independent, functioning private sector governance. And then it collapsed when they started fighting with the state over silly state things, really. The usual sort of thing. That'll work. We don't need Varric for this. No, I actually do want both my warriors for this. There we go. Dora needs to level up, though. Anyway. He's got barrier. Matthew said, when did nerd culture adopt the gay lifestyle? Was this because back in the day both groups were social outcasts? Yeah, that's my theory. Yeah, pretty much. It's that nerd culture was primarily made up of social outcasts. And because it was primarily made up of social outcasts, they adopted other outcast groups, and they started sort of joining together with outcast groups. Yeah. Chain lightning's pretty good. Now let's go walking bomb. Dedrick says, Matthew, gay people have been wasting hours on MMOs, comics, and video games for years. They're not the people pushing the gay lifestyle. I don't know what that means. No, it's I think what we're talking about here is not. So so what you're saying, Dedrick, is I think that's essential to what we're talking about happening. Because what we're really talking about here is not just there are people who identify as LGBT, etc. In the nerd space. Like that's not what I'm talking about here, right? What we're talking about here is the fact that there is this let's say gay lifestyle pushing. The politically queer, let's say, which is distinct from just people who happen to be gay or people who happen to experience same-sex attraction or identify as LGBTQ or whatever. Those are different, distinct things, right? They really, really are. But the big... What in the world? That's weird. Okay, fine. The big change is that it was a... like I said, it was that nerds were already social outcasts, and so they attracted other social outcast groups in like the 80s and 90s. And so, like Detrick, like you said, like gay people have been just doing nerd shit forever. It's been like almost a core demographic of the sort of nerd culture. But I think, yeah, like I said, it is because of that sort of mutual outcast status. There we go. But I think it's that which I will say led to this appropriation of both by let's say broadly the queer theorists or the politically queer, that sort of thing, the wokeists. Ow, really? But I think that is that's part of what led to that happening, is that it was a community that welcomed outsiders and made the periphery its center. And so that meant that it allowed those who identify strongly with the periphery, let's say, to have undue influence, or disproportionate influence. And let's not say undue, disproportionate influence. And that includes the sort of like the wokes or the politically queer or that sort of thing. But then also, beyond that, it's that there's a certain... Because nerds are weirdos, right? Like distinctively, we're kind of weird. Part of what that means then is that we I don't know, accept, embrace, or maybe even promote social counter-normativity, let's say. Weird stuff, people being weird. And that can very quickly transform into something like that can quickly transform very easily into political queerness, let's say, which is specifically about defiance of social norms and that sort of thing. Normalization of things, that sort of thing. And also, let's just be honest. It's very easy movement. It's a very easy group to be co-opted by political causes. Just because a lot of nerds are not exactly don't exactly have social graces, whether that's through like autism proper or just because some nerds are kind of weird. A lot of them are always looking for a group to fit into, and a lot of times that can be a political group, and that's a way that sort of thing can sneak in very, very easily. That, and combine that with the fact that the right, very broadly speaking, especially in the last couple of decades, have been not aggressive against or hating towards pop culture nerd stuff, but overtly dismissive. To say that, well, that's just games, that's just video games, or that's just movies, or that's just television or comic books or whatever. You should go do something real with your life. Go outside, touch grass. That whole thing, like, that is, I think, destructive to the right's ability to influence culture at all. I think that's a big thing. It's a big point, is that by abandoning pop culture, of course, pop culture goes away from what the right would want, because, yeah, you walked away from it. You've acted like it was unimportant and insignificant, and so it left you behind just like you tried to leave it behind. Unsurprising. Anyway, back to some of what you guys were saying here, because you guys were making good points too, and I kind of skipped over them. Kylene says, "Are you kidding? My 12-year-old son is getting pushed at school to choose. He's 12. He's more about playing Spider-Man than girls." Yeah. It's weird. It's very, very weird. It all fits with a lot of ideological underpinnings. A lot of it follows all the way back to people like Michel Foucault, noted pedophile, and Jacques Derrida, not noted pedophile, but still ideologically just as evil, if not more so. And then even further back to the Freudians, who were sex obsessed, and obsessed not just with sex in general, but with specifically deviant sex, because it was deviant. It was the origin, right? The really, really root foundational origin of what we would call queer theory. Again, distinct from people who are attracted to the same sex. That's a different thing, right? Queer theory is the idea of queering things, of exchanging the normative for, having the margin replace the center, let's say. That's the goal of something like queer theory. There we go. Whew. Remember when bears were tough? Anyway. Innocent. So Dedrick says, okay, oh, the postmodern psychopath. Yeah, that's at least what I'm talking about. I don't want to speak necessarily for Matthew, but that is the kind of thing that I'm talking about here. One shot.
Make it take you.
Tetra continued, yeah, modern culture got completely screwed up by subversion. Yeah, I mean, on purpose, right? None of this was accidental. But it relied on a lot of... It wasn't accidental, but it relied on a lot of cultural accidents. Let's put it that way. And let's go clear that rift before we move to the fortress. It's down there, I think. Yeah, it's down there. Okay. Detra continues, a big limitation from my perspective of the right is that it's indefinitely defensive ideology, at least as far as key leadership is concerned, and no wonder it's constantly losing ground. Yeah, and you'll find that the right was the most culturally effective in recent memory when there were people like, I mean, a great example of an actually effective right-wing person recently, like culturally speaking, was somebody like Milo Yiannopoulos, who was, first of all, flamboyantly gay, but also doctrinally Catholic. He was very much a conservative in just about everything. And he was, obsessed with Donald Trump and all these sorts of things that you would think of as very, very conservative in ideology, but then also, like, beyond that, he was offensive, not in the he said mean things sort of way, which is true, but not what I'm talking about. He was on the offense, and you see that with the most successful and influential people on the right now, culturally especially, because you see, like, I don't know, the Daily Wire, for example, is actually doing stuff, changing things, even if they're being kind of reactionary about it, like not making big positive changes and moving in their own direction as opposed to reactionarily. They are still being somewhat reactionary, but at least they're reacting. They're being reactionary and not just retreating, and there's a difference there. Why did they sneak up on us? That was unwise. They should not have done that. What was it? I think it was Brian Holdsworth. Hold on. Let me see. I'll see if I can find this and put it in the description, maybe in the Discord afterwards. Brian Holdsworth is a sort of fairly traditional Catholic cultural commentator kind of guy. Nice dude, Canadian. What more can I say? But he made a point recently in a video about what's this? He made a point about how culture used to be, so how Catholic culture used to be its own culture. And that it was shaped by the liturgical life and everything like that. That's interesting. Treasure map that I'm never gonna follow, I'm sure. So bad at finding this treasure map. But yeah, it's one of those things where if you are just sort of following along with whatever happens to happen and reacting to the things around you, you're never going to make any progress at all. And this is why this is the fundamental strength of progressives, like cultural progressives, is that they are progressing. They're constantly, by nature, on the offense. Then again, it's also something like the intrinsic weakness of progressives. Because there's this issue of progressing towards what? Because that's never a question that they can possibly answer. because there is no towards what. The end goal or the end state for progressivism is constant progress, literally. And so part of the problem with that, of course, is that constant progress is always progress towards what? And there's no particular end goal in mind, and so it becomes necessarily disorganized and necessarily self-destructive, backbiting, you know? What are you going to do about that? You can't. Particular political movements have these intrinsic strengths and weaknesses, and that's just kind of what they are and how they work. Because it has to be, because that's what they are, and it's how they work. You know, it's not a weakness of the particular people in the movement or the particular character of it or anything. It's just the thing you're fighting for works in this way. Matthew said, for example, in 1997, Final Fantasy VII came out. It made fun of LGBT comedy movies, made gay characters the butt of, unintended, the butt of the joke until recently, even in the 2010s with Hangover Part 2. Yeah, I mean, it's weird that it's one of the only groups in society you can't make fun of. Like, you can still make racial jokes if they're clearly jokes, at least under some circumstances. If it's not, like, racial jokes are usually taboo, but they're not outright unacceptable by polite society. Meanwhile, you had the biggest comedian in the last many years, Dave Chappelle, basically canceled. Or not quite, because he kind of stood up to it, but almost completely canceled because of a relatively innocuous joke about transgenderism. Like, and he's made literal KKK jokes. He has dressed in a Klan hood on television. Dude, like, Dave Chappelle is an incredibly offensive and also very funny comedian. So, the problem, though, of course, is that he touched a live wire, which is a bizarre live wire. It's weird that's an off-topic subject. So Khalid says they have to change the DSM-5 because the pressure the gay community was putting on it, or change the DSM-4 to the DSM-5. Right, gotcha. The DSM-5 used to say that it was a mental disorder, and I mean, the same. Okay, so it went from, what was it? I think it was 3 to 4. DSM-3 listed. Now I could be wrong about this. Someone feel free to correct me. I think the DSM-3 listed homosexuality as a disorder, as a mental disorder.
I should ask Mother Giselle to hold a service for Stroud. The Inquisition must honor his sacrifice.
That is a great idea.
You should attend Blackwell.
Why do you want me there?
You pretended to be a warden long enough. You should pay respect to one who actually served.
I like, yeah, that's pretty good. But like I said, so back to what I was saying, I think that the DSM-3, if I remember correctly, referred to homosexuality as a mental disorder. Is it mental disorder or mental illness? Call it what you want. I don't remember. I don't know the terminology exactly. That switched to the DSM-4, but the DSM-4 still referred to gender dysphoria as a mental disorder, so transgenderism, basically. Whereas the DSM-5 now no longer considers either. Where's this damn thing? Now, I will say, looking at current trends, if I had to guess, like I said, looking at current trends, if I had to guess, I would suspect that the DSM-6 is probably going to delist pedophilia. And probably paraphilia. I don't know if it would go that fast, but there's a possibility. I would say that there's a real distinct possibility that it will delist paraphilia in general as a category. But certainly, almost certainly, pedophilia will no longer be listed as a disorder. Just looking at current trends, I really can't see it going any other way. Nice. Okay, I think at this point we're overleveled for this area, but that's fine. That's fine. Wait, someone's coming. Oh, another one of these? You bastards. Ow. Not little bastards, giant bastards. Eileen has, what started this debate, Sarah and Dorian? Oh, no, actually. I was talking about Disney World. Oddly, I was talking about Disney. And I was talking about, God, what led to that? I was talking about Disney because I was talking about, I mentioned that that somebody had lost market share, that some company had lost a significant market share, and then I mentioned, oh yeah, what about Disney? Did you hear that they lost like 20-25% market share? Because, and that set me off on this whole thing. Man, what was it? What was I talking about that lost such a massive market share and that we were talking about before this? I honestly don't remember. Hey, somebody scroll up. I forget. I would happily go back to a previous subject if it's an interesting subject. I'm sure it was. Oh, it was Patreon. That's right. We're talking about Patreon. That's right. We're talking about Patreon and ethical consistency and talking about ethical principles versus versus the particularization of universals and, you know, proper philosophical stuff. And then that eventually led to talking about Patreon, and then talking about Patreon basically nuking themselves by being wildly inconsistent with their rules and such. And then that led eventually, finally, to talking about, oh, you know what other company lost a big market share? And you know what other company was getting into a fight about moral principles and such? Disney! And then I eventually got to talking about nerd culture being going in strange directions. There we go. Jeez. Oh man, Matthew says DSM-5 contains no language basing sexuality as any disorder. Market share loss with Patreon. Yeah, I was talking about, so yeah. Wait, so do you mean, so wait, look, DSM-5 contains no language basing sexuality as any disorder. Wait, so DSM-5 doesn't include any kind of paraphilias as disorder, even things like pedophilia or necrophilia? Like, or bestiality? Those are not listed as disorders in DSM-5? Oh my god. Oh my god. Yeah, so the market share loss was Disney, but before that we were talking about Patreon. Patreon losing like 40% of their customer base. When they started arbitrarily banning people, basically. Kylene says, Professor is easily led into other topics of discussion other than Dragon Age. I'll remember that next time I'm bored. My students know this already. My students definitely know that they can lead me on to whatever the hell topic they want at any time, and I will probably spend significant time on it. Willingly or unwillingly. Or both. I'll start it willingly and then I'll not be able to stop. That's a thing I do. Erica says, none of those emojis. I almost reactively blocked you thinking you were a spam bot. Oh gosh. Yeah, we despite being such a small channel, we have a weird amount of spam bots. It's a shocking amount of spam bots. I think I've had like 6 or 7 in one night before. One 3-hour stream, there's been like 6 or 7 spam bots that we had to ban. Or timeout or whatever. Erica had a jolt of anxiety before reading the rest of the message. Oh yeah. Ah yes, if you have not interacted before, this is that is my wonderful wife, Erica. She is also modding the chat. And occasionally saying spicier and more controversial things than I do. Erica, give us a hot take, if you want. Not to put you overly much on the spot, but, you know. You can't loot. I mean, I can, but I already did. Anyway, well, I also kind of anticipated this this stream not being as Dragon Age related in terms of conversation, mostly because we're mostly doing side quests in the hinterlands, as one does when one plays Inquisition. This is my 3rd stream that we've played exclusively in the hinterlands, 3rd or 4th, I think 3rd. And we've recently come back after a long time away from the hinterlands, doing other things. Oh, a mosaic piece, neat. Maybe I will find some of those. Certainly not all. Okay. Okay, that's the way we came. I think this is the way we're going. What else do we need to do here? Oh. Yeah, Erica says, I will say I got burned out on Disney around the time Grandpa and Grandma would take Saoirse every other weekend. Yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it. How do I get up there? How in the world do I get up there? I will say, I love going with the kids still. At least for now. Just to, especially before the whole Coof thing, it was still absolutely wonderful to just see the joy of, you know, seeing Mickey Mouse and all of the crazy fun parades and stuff like that. The joy on a 2-year-old's face is just, you can't match that. That's one of the best things in the world. But man, I hope that doesn't go away. But it looks like it is. Kind of looks like it is. How do I get up there? How do I get up there? Is it... There's a ladder. Around the outside, maybe? I don't know. Matthew said, I don't know about those things in particular, but gay and transgender stuff is basically taken out. There's gender dysphoria and some other things like pedophilia. The APA is under pressure to remove those terms down the line. Yeah, I figured that much. I figured they would be. And it's inside, but it's up a floor. How do we get up a floor? It has to be through over there, right? No. How do I get up there? Do I have to drop it down somehow? Is there a thing for that? Is there a lever? Is there a secret lever?
Incidentally, Cassandra, I'm well aware you lied to me.
I lied to you.
When you said the Mage Rebellion was beyond the power of the Seekers to control. I've since heard your order could have prevented it, but instead led the Templars into war once it started.
It
Nasty.
is why I left the order, yes.
Knee-jerk defense of your former comrades. I quite understand.
So, Kathleen said I had a high school English teacher. Got her talking about the ghosts living in her attic. You'd get out of assignments for the day. Oh gosh, yeah. Now that sounds like me. I mean, not ghosts living in my attic, mostly because we barely have an attic. I've never been there. And I don't think there's ghosts there. Mostly because it's also a new house, so where would the ghosts have come from? All right, well, this is, I guess, taken care of. There's no more to do, I guess. Oh, there's a shard. There's shards there. Turn the stolen fortress, or stolen treasure. Let's go check that out then. Move, Cass. Move. There we go. Erica continued. Also, being in Disney Junkies group and seeing how infantile people are obsessed with Disney are. That's true. Oh yeah, that can be killer. I just had the realization. I mean, I've realized this before, but it really just hit me recently that Baby Yoda is basically a minion at this point, as far as memes go, as far as boomer memes go. It's pretty cringe, man. It's pretty cringe, man. Erica continued. I just can't be in the parks anymore because there's a bunch of freaks displaying their degeneracy openly. Yeah. No one expects streaming the Inquisition. Yeah, we do. Every Thursday, guys. Every Thursday, Inquisition. Also, every time I've been pregnant, so I can't ride the cool rides. That's pretty true. At least recently. Anything like recently. Honestly, takes me to a Six Flags or Universal. I'd throw rides I hadn't been on a good coaster in 5 years. Oh no, okay. So instead of wanted to take my boys, but it's a long trip for us. I hear mixed reviews of the park all the time. Yeah, and I also really do have to say that a lot of the just general quality has gone down lately, and a lot of that is Chapek, the current CEO, has cut back on a lot of like little quality things that used to be what made Disney World so unique. It was a big thing when Walt Disney founded Disney World and then had the idea or Disneyland and then had the idea for Disney World that it was all about quality, that it was a premium cost and everything, yes, but everything was supposed to be top-notch quality. Everything was clean, everything was nice, everything was an actual value for what you were paying because you were paying a good bit, and like I have trouble seeing that anymore. Especially in the last, well, obviously in the last couple of years. Ooh, boy. Especially like with a lot of the COVID stuff. But even beyond that, a lot of the quality just isn't where it used to be, or isn't where it should be for Disney. It's not up to what I think of as Disney standard. Not nearly. Where are these things? This is the edge of the fortress. Why is the map show the fortress going like another mile? I don't know. Can I get down that way? No. I'll die. Let's walk down like normal people. Anyway. Detrix says Six Flags is, oh yeah, fortunately it's just Pride merch everywhere, which is really awkward, and Saoirse really sees rainbows and wants it, and I'm giving the Grands good stink eye, making sure they say no, yeah. Because, rainbows are great. Saoirse's a 4-year-old girl. She loves rainbows for nice, wholesome, happy reasons. Having nothing to do with adult reasons whatsoever. Adult or cultural or whatever. I'm not reading that out loud for Susan reasons, but yes, spicy take. Good one. Yeah, the closest Six Flags is in Georgia. Yeah, Six Flags is great. Patrick says there's about 2 hours from me. The family went there in summer before the coronavirus. Really fun. Yeah, I mean I hate the whole like the before times sort of thing, because it's almost funny. We went to Disney literally the last day it was normal, because we went for Saoirse's second birthday, which was March 15th, 2020. And if you recall, something remarkable happened very shortly after that. That was the weekend. That was the last weekend. for most of the world. And we were at Disney. We went to Disney for that weekend. And we were like the last guests in Animal Kingdom for 6 months. Which is tragic, really. Huh. Yeah. Detrick says, the most morally abhorrent thing I see is Raytheon or Blackwater having the pride flags. Yeah, that's... Yeah. Hey, at least our drone pilots are diverse when they vaporize innocent families. Cool. Heck yeah. That was one of those big, campaign parodies in 2016 was saying we're ready for Hillary. It's time that the one dropping bombs on innocent people is a woman. I was like, yeah, that's disturbing, all right. The aquarium in Atlanta. I wanted to go there. Yeah, the park is a skip away too. Yeah, the our aquarium is nice, but it's an aquarium. The Tampa aquarium is nearish to our part of Florida, and it's really nice, but it is an aquarium. It's not an amusement park. There isn't a attached park. There isn't really anything. It's wonderful. I love it. It's a great aquarium, but at the same time, it's an aquarium. It's not too much else. Yeah, about Disney, Erica says service is down. Service is down, serving sizes down, food prices up, rides are always down, cast members look like they woke up and chose depression and hatred. The park itself feels really dingy. Yeah, which is so bizarre to me. Like, because I pretty much grew up at Disney. And it never was like that. That was what it was like that's what it felt like when I would go to other amusement parks. Like, one of the few times that I'd gone to some places like Six Flags or Cedar Point once, or even Universal, it felt dingy. It felt like a facade. I don't know how else to explain it. It felt like a cheap facade. Whereas Disney felt... I hate to sound like a weird Disney propagandist, but it felt magic. It felt magical. Like, everything felt like it should, given what it was trying to portray. Oh, hey. But yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right that it's a weird change that is really disappointing, because like I said, I always used to love Disney. There's still a lot about it that I really do still love. Like, don't get me wrong. But obviously there's a lot that don't so much. Oh yeah, it's Erica's jam. She doesn't really game much. That's yeah, more or less true. Yeah, not so big in a while, at least. Yeah. Little games you can pause and walk away from, yeah, for the kids. Oh yeah, Dwarf Romantic, that puzzle world builder. I know you've been enjoying that. I also got Islanders, which honestly I've been enjoying more. It's one of those. It's another one of those like low stress, low stakes, puzzle builder, like city builder type things. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. I haven't tried out Dwarf Romantic yet. You usually find, but
made this part of Ferelden more dangerous
I
than
might
ever
at some point.
before.
Yeah, the kids aren't. Yeah, Kylie, the kids aren't old enough for like Catan even Monopoly, those sorts of things. Not yet. They're 0, 2, and 4 basically. So not quite yet. Maybe someday. Someday soon. Someday soon. Yeah, because I got Noida, Rimworld, Days to Die, City Skylines, Oblivion, Skyrim, Fallouts. Need to get back into Path of Exile. Yeah. I could never get into Path of Exile. I tried it out like once, twice. Never got into it. I don't know why. I'll go up there. Oh, do I have to go up to the fortress to get up there? Ah, Jesus. Okay, here we go. Or I can Skyrim style climb the wall. No, I can't. Okay, fine. Be that way. Oh yeah, he also played attempt to play Sword Coast Legends. Yeah, but it's the gameplay of story is dry. Yeah. A lot of the D&D games are kind of yeah. Yeah, she did play. Actually, she played Greedfall a long while before I did. That's why when I was playing it, she was guiding me through a lot of things. Like, hey, you definitely need to do this so as not to do something dumb. And yeah, that was very useful advice going all the way through. Same with Mass Effect 1. Oh yeah, you tried Dragon Age, couldn't get through it. Yeah, the gameplay in Dragon Age Origins is fairly dated. Fairly dated. I still really like it. But it might be my least favorite of the Dragon Age series. It might be my least favorite, which is a weird thing. It's definitely not most people's least favorite. It's most people's either favorite or second after Inquisition. But I really like 2, mostly for the characters and the writing. And the action-y combat. It's just very fun. But yeah. Also, yes, as Erica said, we can't keep a Candyland board game intact. They tear apart the board and scatter the loose cards. Yeah, honestly, Candyland is maybe the worst because it has so many loose pieces, the different cards. Chutes and Ladders isn't faring much better, but the spinner is holding together more so than the cards, so there's that at least. Give you my copies. Boys are too old for the games. Yeah, Saoirse's pretty destructive. She's very, very hyper. She's incredibly energetic. And winds up being destructive very unintentionally. Sometimes intentionally, but usually unintentionally. But, you know. Yeah, we can do that. I'm still afraid to do the Druffalo thing. For some stupid reason. I shouldn't be. I'm going to go try it out. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to try it out. Let's go here. Let's bring... Nah, group I got is fine. Demons. The Druffalo. Mark that one. How did you teach your boys to play Minecraft at age 2? Wow. Okay. Help with therapy. All right. Wow. I didn't think you could do that. That's really impressive. Oh, well, let's do that. Yeah, let's go do that. Got to do it eventually, so let's do it now. The problem with Dragon Age games in the series is you have to start from the first game, so no skipping to 2 or anything. So yeah, Kylene says you can use Dragon Age Keep and just play Dragon Age Inquisition. Comes to knowing the lore, you can read the books. There's a 5-book sale on Amazon. I ought to read more of the books. I should. It's down on my list. Like I said, I'm still finishing. I don't know. I'm still finishing Lord of the Rings. I have my old copy from 1990s. From the late 90s when they came out with cinematic tie-in books. So I have these ones. I still eventually need to get a nice hardcover copy of the trilogy, but that's what I'm currently going through. Next up on the list is Wheel of Time. I need to finally read Wheel of Time. Oh, jeez. Oh, okay. No, this is fine. This is fine. Oh, that's the other problem with this. You have to go way up high to actually disrupt the damn rift. There. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, Erica says it's a compulsion. She can't just start it. Can't just use the keep. Also, if you use the keep, you can't start at 2. And I love 2. I could not imagine missing out on playing 2. Like, every time I've actually played through the series, pretty much every time I've played through even played through Inquisition, I think every time No. I played through 1 3 times. 2, I think 4 times, including on the stream. And then Inquisition 5? I think 5 times. Oops. This makes 5, I think. This is stupid. I hate these stupid things. Oh my gosh. So Minecraft's great therapy for children with autism. They have to talk to me about the game if they want me to teach them something about the game. Cool. That's really cool. Because, yeah, I mean, now that I think about it, it's one of those where you don't need to learn to read yet. And that's because that's a big obstacle for a lot of games. For really young kids. You have to be really good at reading, and you have to be really good at reading very quickly to actually play and enjoy a lot of games. And, you know, like Saoirse, she can read words, but she's very slow at it. She's very slow at it. And she gets frustrated pretty quickly. And so, like, she desperately wants to play Pokemon. Because she loves Pokemon. But I know that if she tries to play Pokemon, that she's going to have a lot of reading to do. A lot of reading to do. There's no way she's going to be able to pull that off. Not yet. So that is her incentive to learn to read currently. Learn to read, you can have your very own Pokemon game. But yeah, I think that actually makes sense for Minecraft. Now, to be fair, I wouldn't have thought that young. I would have thought maybe like 5 or 6. But hey, if it works, it works. Awesome. Very cool. Come on, Mr. Big Guy, Mr. Big Gruffalo. Colleen says, I would play dumb, like I didn't understand what they wanted help with when played with them. They had to speak. That's cool. That's awesome. I mean, yeah, that is, I mean, even Saoirse's really wildly outgoing. So she's ready to talk about anything and everything. But we still need to get her to articulate things clearly. In a way, clearly and also politely, but also clearly in a way that isn't just in a way that we know what she's talking about, but nobody else will. And so a lot of times we do that. We have to say, oh, I don't know what you're talking about, because no one else will. But yeah, even for you know, normal neurotypical, or you want to say, neurotypical kind of kids, right? That kind of thing is, I like that teaching technique. Oh, come on, are you serious? You can't come up here? Yes, you can. Come on. Yes, you can. You can do it. You can do it. I hope. Yeah, there we go. Cool. Got it. All my boys had a lot of games they grew up seeing us play, wanted to play too. They had to read out loud, practice reading. These days, getting my butt kicked in game by a 12-year-old. Awesome. Love that. Can't wait. I do honestly want to get, what at least Saoirse hooked on, because I think she could definitely pull this one off, is the Mario Kart Wii, the Wii version of Mario Kart, because it's motion controlled. Because you play it with the Wii remote in. They had a steering wheel for it. You could play within the steering wheel. She could. I'm very confident she would love that. We just need to get it all hooked up and get back to actually doing it. Come on. hate this quest. I really hate this quest. Is he coming? Yep, come on. Come on. Here we go. Honestly, I was the same way when I was really little. I because I loved like stories and that sort of thing. But when I was 4 or so, I was Serge's age basically. My parents basically had to force me to learn to read because I didn't want to. I didn't want to learn to read because I didn't think I needed to learn to read because everyone always read to me. I didn't need to read anything because, well, I'm just 4 years old. I don't need to read. And so I could get by perfectly well without putting in the effort. And then, eventually, once my parents convinced me that learning to read was actually a good idea, that it was actually going to, benefit me somehow, in a bunch of different ways. I could read stories on my own. I didn't have to have somebody read to me. Or I could, one of the things I remember really distinctly is that my mom told me that I could read people's name tags when I went places. So I could greet them by name. And so I could be friendlier. And I was a super outgoing kid. So that was a huge reward for me. So that was one of the things that convinced me to learn to read. And I learned to read in like 2 months. Because I basically, honestly, I probably already kind of knew. I don't remember this too clearly, obviously, but
I appreciate you finding her, and I'll see to it that this never happens.
I probably pretty much already knew. It's just I hadn't applied myself fully, and once I did, it just all fell into place, which was nice. Okay, Astrarium, that, and then we go do the Varric thing, and then we're done in the hinterlands. Oh my god, we're done in the hinterlands. There's no way we're done in the hinterlands. You're never done in the hinterlands. No one ever leaves the hinterlands. Anyway. Yeah, I think Inquisition might be my favorite of the 3. Mostly for the story, because I love the story of Inquisition, and I love how the sort of story progression of it. It has a lot of the great characters from before, and a lot of great new characters. Of course, it also has some characters who I really can't stand, like Sarah. I can't stand Sarah. I really can't. Come on, Nug. Here we go. Yeah, I really like Inquisition. I do have to say though that like Sarah annoys the crap out of me. She's an early attempt at PB, and I don't like PB either from Andromeda. Like, not at all. Although, I will say, PB was a little less bad, because she was a little worse. Just sort of in general, she was a little worse. But, she actually had a good arc, if you romanced her. But only in a romance. Like, if you didn't romance PB, then she stayed a really static, awful character who was insufferable the whole time. But if she actually, like, gets to know and comes to really love and to trust Ryder, like, in a romantic relationship, then she's actually a really good character. She has a really good arc. But the fact that you pretty much have to romance her to get that arc is not good character writing. Not good. Not good. Not good. Anyway, that's a different game. But honestly, I think that both of them are sort of attempts at recapturing the charm of Mission Vow from KOTOR, who really is delightful because She's a 14-year-old kid in wildly over her head.
This place upside down, hasn't it?
Just wildly, unimaginably over her head. She has absolutely no reason to be in the situation that she's in, but she's a street urchin. She's a kid caught on the streets, needing to scrap by to survive. She's got a best friend who's a giant scary Wookiee. She's great. She's still a bratty little teenager, because of course she is, because she's 14. But first of all, she has the excuse of just being 14. But then also, she learns, and she actually interacts with and learns from the other characters in a way that I kind of... Sarah doesn't really. And PB doesn't really, unless you romance her. Yeah, I don't know. I think that they were trying. I know what they were going for. I get it, but the execution just falls really short on both of them. It doesn't help that I have a deep loathing for Cockney accents, for the same reason that Tolkien did. It's an abomination of the English language. It's very straightforwardly and simply a twisting, a corruption of English. Anyway, I'm no Tolkien, but I do have an appreciation for speaking properly. Eileen says, "Oh, and then you'd bump into that one. Oh, this is about me like learning name tags. Then you bump into that one person at Walmart that has a very unusual name, and they catch you staring at the name tag because you spent 3 minutes staring at it and trying to figure it out. Oh yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, I've done that. I did that when I was a kid. Probably still do. What the heck am I looking for? Yeah, I'm trying to find where these looters are, but I killed them all, didn't I? What am I looking for? Safeguard against looters. Let me check the actual quest journal. A man named Hessel led the fighting to a cave in the Northern Hills. The secret project in tow. I honestly, at least our girls, we just can't name them normally. At least not normal spelling. Saoirse, if you saw from Erica typing in the chat, is basically unspellable and unpronounceable. Because it's Irish. It's Irish Gaelic. And first of all, Irish Gaelic is kind of unpronounceable, even if you speak it. Even if you're fluent in the language, it's kind of unpronounceable. I know the pronunciation rules. I actually learned the pronunciation rules at one point when I took a history seminar on Celtic history. They're nonsensical, but they're entertaining at least. But the other point is that it includes a phoneme. Oh, that was it? It was grenade belt? Okay, fine. It includes a phoneme that just does not exist in English. Isn't used in English. Saoirse. It's the closest thing in English would be a combination of oi and a. It's Saoirse, which again isn't a thing. So great, we gave our first daughter an unpronounceable and unspellable name with 3 vowels in a row. Very kind of us. Our second daughter, our third kid, is named Monica. Simple, straightforward, easy name, right? No. It's spelled the traditional way, and by the traditional way, I mean the way that it's spelled in the manuscripts. By which I mean the way that St. Augustine spelled the name of his mother, Monica, Saint Monica, which is with 2 N's. Yeah, and of course that's non-standard these days, but it's still objectively correct. I will take a stand on that. It's, by the way, one of my favorite saints. I love the whole, she basically converted her son by being an incessant mother. I kind of love that. All right, so let's go Dorian, let's go Varric, let's go Blackwell, because they're digging the deep roads. That means there's Darkspawn. He's not a real warden, but he's at least a pretend warden. So let's take Blackwell. Dorian? Or do we not want to take Dorian? Vivienne? Vivienne. Maybe Vivienne. No. Yeah, let's do Vivienne. Okay. Let's set our quest marker down there. It's already set. Patrick says, I think Sarah would have benefited from one or two more talks on nobility, commoners, mages, etc. to flesh out her character more. A lot of Sarah's banter with companions is better than her character quest. Yeah. That said, her banter with the companions is... I think the biggest problem is that her banter with the companions is just unrelated to her character quest and her progression and her arc. Because most of her banter with the companions is just jokes. It's funny. And it is. Like, a lot of it's genuinely funny. Like, don't get me wrong. She is an entertaining character because she is funny. And some of the jokes land, some of them don't land as well, but the ones that do land are actually pretty good. It's just that is what they focus on for most of her arc, or for most of her banter. Whereas her actual character quest and all of that are... I'm gonna go sell some stuff off. Sorry. Her actual quest is political intrigue and class warfare and the whole Sherlock Holmesian trope of there being this of spy masters relying on the little people and all that stuff. Cool looking, but no. No. Enough. Yeah, Kylene says, yeah, many of the companions could have been more in-depth. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Part of it is that there's so many of them. There's a lot of companions in this game. But... And they each really get one quest line, and none of them interact. That's actually one thing that BioWare games do really well, but I wish they could do better. And I know that sounds a little ungrateful, but they do companion quests really well, but they do companion interactions with each other relatively poorly. The exceptions to that are some of the stuff where there's banter here. There's a little bit of interaction in Skyhold, but it's not like it was in Mass Effect 3. In Mass Effect 3 on the Normandy, your companions are always chatting with each other and doing stuff together. And then that's taken up to 11 with Citadel DLC. And then even in Andromeda, they wind up doing stuff. They wind up interacting with each other a lot. Even more so than in any of the Dragon Age games. But honestly, it would be better. I think BioWare could do that better. They could step that up. Got a nug.
Looks like Carta. Lyrium smuggling would be profitable around here.
Okay, let's move forward. Yeah, although companions could have been a little more in depth. Yeah, like I said. Lead says, I'm doing the Blackwell romance right now. When you asked to talk about us, the game leaps from one spot on the map to... I say, weird leap from one spot to the one spot to the next. Yeah. I mean, it's got to be kissing in the right place, right? Could have smoothed that out as well as bits of Sarah's personality. Yeah, I mean, Sarah's personality, yeah, as well. She's got two character traits, and they're kind of in opposition to one another. She's got goofy, which they pull off quite well. And then they've got revolutionary, which I don't think they pull off nearly as well because it gets interrupted by the goofiness. They do the same stuff with Bull, Kylene says. When you romance the Bull, you flirt with him twice. You get caught in bed with by the other companions, and that's about it. Yeah. There's not much going on there. It's true.
Finally. I started to think you weren't coming.
Nobody said you had to hang out in the creepy cave while you waited.
Well, I did wait, so let's make this quick. These idiots are carrying the red lyrium out in unprotected containers. We don't want to stick around long enough for it to start talking to us.
Eileen says, Erica said, but how can you stand Blackwell's big plump baby lips and that horrible mustache? Eileen says, because I don't see him. I want to see the lore, so I want to play this character romancing Blackwell. Fair enough. Listen, I got a beard, but my mustache doesn't do that. I wish it did, to be fair. At least a little bit. I've never been good at growing a mustache. Full disclosure. Beard I can do. I look much worse without one, trust me. Much worse without one. But Rainier is a good character, you're right. Also, it doesn't feel like it matches the rest of his beard. Also, his lips are big, plump baby lips, and I laugh when I see him. Yeah, Blackwell is okay. You say he's weird aesthetically. I was also about to agree with you, but also I will say, if you actually look at Blackwell, and especially if you say compare Blackwell to late medieval French fashion. So like 15th century, very early Renaissance. The forked beard, the curled mustache, and it's styled towards the fork and the curl. That, especially with I don't know about with the Gambison. It's a little bit earlier. But that whole thing is very much like 15th century France. Absolutely men's fashion of the time. All he needs is high heels. Yeah, my mustache gets pointy. That's fair. I'll give you that. Helene says romancing Solus because of how he looks is the hardest for me. Egg. Damned egg. Blackwell is a facial hair disaster, but I'm coming around to it. See, like I said, it actually works together. The end of his lore, he's a good person. Yeah, he has sufficiently turned himself around, and I love a good redemption arc. And he's got a good redemption arc. His entire arc is about him atoning, and I think it's done quite well. Yeah, no one can beat the Cullen Romance. The only thing that can beat the Cullen Romance that we're doing is... Oh, in looks, you mean. Okay, never mind. Not what I was saying. Not what I was going for, but okay, fair enough. Alright. Like I said, I especially like the Cullen Romance if you're playing a female mage, and you played a female mage in Origins, because he has a weird little arc to go from having this mage crush to hating mages to coming back around to it. It goes full circle. I like that. Yeah, the romance is good. Yeah, it's good. If you do want to see, I hate to say this, if you want to see what I bonked out from last week, it's all over YouTube. So feel free. There's some Cullen butt present that I had to sit through that you didn't. Anyway, Fenris, really, Dedrick? Fenris? I don't know. He's too mopey boy band for me. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't know. My canon romance for Dragon Age 2 is always Meryl. Or Sebastian. I actually really like Sebastian. But I will say that I think that Dragon Age 2 has the weakest romances. Really. Now, to be fair, that's also controversial. I admit that's a controversial take. But maybe it's just because I never really liked Fenris. Fenris is better than Blackwell, better than Cullen from an aesthetic point of view. Detrick says. Erica says Fenris. Lol, he's the Exhibit A, a first-time D&D player who chose a pizza cutter rogue for his character. Also, his voice does not match his model. He's not even a rogue. He's a warrior, but he looks like he should be a rogue. You're right. The all edge no point. He's very 2011. How about that? I think that's about right. He's very 2011. He looks like the inside of a Hot Topic from 2011. I think that's good. A good, uncharitable, mean description. So why does Red Lyrium... I'm not going to ask that. That's so stupid. Wait, you did what? How'd you do that? Is it a mod? I didn't think you could romance Varric in Dragon Age 2. I thought that there was supposed to be a thing where you could, but that it was left out, like intentionally, but the whole romance was the devs were going to have it so Cassandra asks him at the end in the frame story thing, asks him, are you sure that's everything? What about you and the champion? And he says something like, well, I'm not going to tell you everything. Or something like that, implying, very, very subtly, not very subtly, but implying, subtly for Varric, implying. I thought that was all that there was for Varric, and even that I didn't think was there. I didn't think you could romance Varric in DA2. Dedrick says, let me preface it that DA2 is the only type of game where a character like Fenris and Anders could exist, or where Sebastian would be unique just by being lawful good. Okay, fair enough. I'll give you that. I will give you that. Dragon Age 2 is wildly over the top and told like it's told like a pulp novel. It's told like one of Varric's stories. So fair enough, I guess. Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and say that Fenris probably looks like a normal person, but that's just how Varric described him. He's a mage human with Varric. It was funny. He kept kissing your stomach. What? You can do that? I had no idea you could do that. I love the DA2. Detrick says is so saturated with edgelords. What a wonderful good guy like Sebastian's walking in Alamely. Yeah. Play a female dwarf and romance the bull. Don't drink anything aimed at your screen when romance plays. Oh no. Might spew something laughing. This is not his... Oh. It's a height difference. Anyway, speaking of Bianca, does she know what red lyrium does? Because we do. We've talked to Varric about this.
You seem to know more about the effects of red lyrium than most.
Varric told me plenty about what it did to him. And his brother.
You have cover pictures during romance scenes. This is a Christian Minecraft server stream. Yes, that one. No whoring allowed. I haven't done an updated one with Sable's picture instead of Hawke, but I can't find a perfect one that is that like derpy. Can't find a perfect derp face, so I'm just sticking with it for Hawke. I'm just using Hawke for all of our Dragon Age ones. I've got a Star Wars one. I would need to switch configurations for it. Tune in Monday. You'll see it.
How did you find this operation in the first place? There must be hundreds of deep roads entrances.
I've used this entrance in the past. Varric's not the only surface dwarf to explore the deep roads. Oh, I've got to admit, I was pretty surprised when I came here and found it full of humans.
Still funny, she's meant to be kissing his lips, but she only comes up to his waist. Yeah. Are you sure she's meant to be? Yeah, she is. I'm sure she is, but... all these romances are sex outside of marriage. None of it's acceptable. They all need to keep their pants on. You do a Sebastian. Sebastian, it is a Josephite marriage. I actually really like it. It's great. I mean, by contrast, well, I don't know if by contrast, maybe by comparison, this past Monday, we got to the quest in KOTOR where you, the quest is to help a woman, a widow, find her protocol droid, who has been replacing her husband, so to speak. Yeah. The droid actually ran away from home, was not actually kidnapped, ran away from home, tried to get himself destroyed, and you have the option of granting him mercy and killing him rather than, or destroying, because it's a droid, it's not a person. It's a sex robot. Destroying him rather than bringing him back to his wife.
We'd better get to work.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, it's a great game. Great game. Even if that was really dumb. I love some of those. I love some of the quests.
Must be an old
Early
dwarven
BioWare
outpost.
quests.
What was it for?
Trade, maybe? Your guess is as good as mine.
Can you... You can't shield bash. No one has anything that can destroy this. I hate that. This is why I like playing a Rift Mage. Rift Mage gets... It's not called Fist of the Maker, but it's basically Fist of the Maker from DA2. Because I always played Force Mage. I usually played Force Mage in DA2. And it basically has... It's the same effects as a lot of the Rift Mage stuff. Oh my god! That was cool. Damn, we got hit pretty hard there. Really? There. I shouldn't have picked that up. Oh well. Okay, we got him. Yes, Sebastian's a good boy. I really do like Sebastian. And like Tetrick was saying, he is a weird outlier in the DA2 cast. But I think I like having him there because he's a unique voice, especially because okay, so I really like especially with Dragon Age 2, the characters. They play really fast and loose with archetypal stereotypes. That's a weird combination of things, archetypes and stereotypes, but bear with me. Right. So if you looked at any of the characters, just their design, not armor and weapons, like setting aside their armor and weapons, or even keep their armor, but like set aside their weapons, you would never guess their character classes. None of them. Or their combat rules. You wouldn't guess a single one of them. Maybe Meryl. Nah. Okay, fine. Meryl and Isabella, you would probably guess. Our mage and rogue. But other than that, everyone is just strangely atypical. Even Meryl, not really. Meryl wears chainmail. Like a full-on set of chainmail. Which is kind of weird for a mage, if you ask me. Oh, Solus is the only one in this game you can't get nudes, as far as you know. Well, I mean, of the romances in total, in general, or just of the companions that you can romance. Because you can still romance Josephine. But there's no nude scene. There might be others too. Might not be just Josephine. At least Josephine though. Reminds me of that one of my favorite things to do is making characters for D&D who look nothing like the class. Yeah. Like Sebastian. Look at Sebastian. Look at him. Look at how he acts. Look at his armor. He's a warrior, right? No, he's an archer rogue. Same with, like we were saying about Fenris. Fenris, any reasonable person looking at Fenris would say, oh yeah, that is definitely a rogue. But no, he's a warrior. He's a two-handed warrior. What the heck? That's bizarre. I kind of love it. Even Varric. You don't think of the dwarf as the crossbowman. You think of the dwarf as the fighter guy, right?
So
At
this
least
is
I
what
do.
you do now?
Beg pardon?
Skulking around in caves, shooting guys. Is this your day-to-day?
I
There's a
usually try to
Danuvian
avoid
swordswoman
caves.
in D&D. Yeah, Erica's. Yeah, I love this thing that you do. The what the hell is this person? Why are you like this? But yeah, I think the like you said, Sable, your rogue in the Cars with Strahd game, is. By the way, if you want me to read through any of these, do let me know. I will go back through it. But you basically play as a fighter. Like actual combat role and combat attitude, you play as a fighter. You just happen to have sneak attack and cunning action. You use a two-handed longsword.
We may be too close to the surface for these to count as deep roads. Have I mentioned I hate the deep roads?
Nice. Most of them are panty droppers. I've seen Josie's Romance yet. I like Josie's Romance. Super cute. Basically, you the big culmination is not like it's not a sex scene or anything. It is you go to Val Royeaux and you fight a duel for her honor. It's great. It is so incredibly Josephine. Put it that way. It would, like, her romance arc and the culmination of it and everything having to do with it would not make a lick of sense for any other character. It does not fit any other character, but man, it fits Josephine so well. I also really like, I can't watch romance scenes anymore, too cringy. They usually are. They really are. And that's part of why I like Josephine's. They don't try and make it, like, they don't try and make it all, like, sexy or anything. It's romantic in the way that telling a story can be. Eric says, and then there's Idris, who's either a fighter or a paladin, but either way, big tank guy with a polearm. He's very easy to guess, and that's very true. Might be me 20 years ago, very religious. Yeah, of course. Still. Why wouldn't we be? Oh wait, we need 2 gears. Oh jeez. Where's the other one? Yeah, it's, hey, you're supposed to be here. There we go. Yeah, it's... Like I said, I think that it works really well with Josephine because they, like I said, because they don't try and be like... They don't try and make it sexy, because it's so hard to do in a game, especially animation, that kind of thing. It usually turns awkward. Like even if you're invested in it, and even if you're like, I don't know, in the mood to be turned on or whatever, it's still, it is when we are at our most alert for uncanniness, let's say. So when we notice something that's uncanny animation, oh boy, are we noticing it.
You had me worried, you know.
What did I do now?
That letter you sent me about the Red Lyrium was the first I'd heard from you since the Chantry explosion.
Had it been that long?
Seriously, if you died in that mess, I'd have come back to Kirkwall and dug you up just to kick your ass.
What would you do if I'd been cremated?
Kick your ashes, of course.
If Eric back in college, so how the turntables, yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, that's true. To a degree, yeah. And it says as female, I like seeing the real male romances first. Fair. That's fair. Although, in a lot of BioWare games, I find myself playing women because I feel like it fits the narrative better. In a lot of cases, in most cases even, I think it fits the narrative much better. Let's do elemental mines. Y map to B. The whole fallback thing is not very useful for Varric, for AI. Oh yeah, even her non-romance companion quest is perfect. Yeah, I really like Josephine as a character. Candle on her clipboard is so cute. Yeah, that's so cool. That's really clever. That's really, really clever. As far as, like I said, I mean, as far as I know historically, I don't know if that was ever done. I don't think so. Because, I mean, realistically, if you think about it, if you've ever held a candle that long over paper and such and try to work with it while moving around like she does, it's going to spill.
The darkspawn are coming up through. Well,
It's going to spill. And if it spills on important documents, that's exactly what you don't want. So, I mean, yeah, it's probably realistically impractical, but who cares? It's still really cool. It's okay, fine. Go ahead, do your thing.
Hope that holds the darkspawn back.
Thank you, Vivienne. You don't need to be weirdly passive-aggressive about it. Khalid says, yeah, these days I'm happily married, 2 kids, but I'm not picky about what happens in a game with my husband at my side playing the same game with me. Yeah, I mean, I'm not like, I'm not like squeamish about it, but a lot of it can be like, it can be cringy because you're trying, especially if it's like a romance scene that's trying to be sexy.
Bogdan?
That can be really cringy.
My machine to wealthy landowners.
I heard some of the guild were trying to get you named a paragon for that contraption.
That's not gonna happen, even if I am 10 times the Smith Bronca ever was. A surfacer paragon? Never.
10 times the Smith Bronca ever was.
I built these doors.
That's harsh.
They probably shut this one from the other side when they heard the ruckus we were making. Ta-da!
Although I will say that this is actually, you know what? I'll put, that's another thing I'll put in the description. I've put this in a lecture as well, where I've talked about how, and I've talked about it on stream, that how playing a game can be a kind of moral practice. It can be a kind of practice for virtue. Because, look, most of us don't have much opportunity to practice virtue, especially the harder virtues. Because, like courage. My go-to example of this is courage. Right? I am a mild-mannered academic, and I sit on my ass for way too much. Just way too much of my life. I sit on my ass. I get almost no opportunity to practice the virtue of courage, and yet I should be courageous. As a human being, as a person, I ought to have the virtue of courage. The problem is I have no opportunity to practice it, and virtues are habits. They're habits of character, and they are the kind of thing that ought to be practiced. They need to be practiced if they're going to be reliable, if you're going to, say, act courageously in a situation that calls for it. You need to have it well practiced. The problem with that is that there are some virtues that you can practice. Things like honesty, simple. You can practice being honest by being honest. You can practice being charitable by caring about other people. You can practice also all the other virtues you can practice, or maybe not. for some people, depending on your life situation, some of the virtues are harder to practice than others. And so what this means is, if you can place yourself, in this case, virtually, in the sense of both digitally and then also virtually in the sort of classical medieval sense of placing yourself as if it were real into a situation, then what you can do is you can practice virtue, right? And this is why I don't like playing evil characters in RPGs, and because I DM for D&D as well, and I try at least to sufficiently distance myself from villainous characters when I'm DMing. Like, I'll do the voice and I'll do the action stuff, but then I will be sure to narrate, to like third person narrate what he does, and then to take the player's side on some things in terms of narration wise, and that sort of thing, which I think is you need to be able to do that sort of thing to be able to distance yourself from things that you're imitating, things that you're play acting that are beneath you, and from an ethical perspective. Whereas you can embody and practice and take on as a role unto yourself things that are above you, that you aspire to, morally speaking or ethically speaking. But yeah, it's, and I will say, like, part of why I block the sex scenes is because, I mean, this is a nighttime hobby that I do, and I am actually a professional academic, and my students know about my YouTube channel, and I don't want to be that weird. Yeah, and then also, yeah, depending on the game, that can attract the ire of Mama Susan, so to speak. So none of that I don't want to mess with any of that too. And it's just a layer of propriety, at least a little bit of professional propriety that I mean, yes, fine. I'm streaming Dragon Age Inquisition in a Hawaiian shirt on a Thursday night during exam week, because my class doesn't have exams this semester, at least. But I mean, I also like to think that I discuss things that are academic in nature, at least a lot of the time on the channel, whether that's on the streams or especially more so in the videos. And so I want to keep at least some layer of professionalism, and some of that involves keeping it relatively family friendly, taming back some of the harsher aspects, or harsher aspects as well, as I would, not just harsher aspects in terms of risque, but also harsher aspects if I were to play a game that had, perfect example, I turn persistent gore off on most of the games that I play, because that can be the kind of thing that can be off-putting, traumatic, unsettling. I don't really mind it, other than hey, I don't get to see my cool armor, but other than that, I don't mind it really. I don't really mind gore in games too much, but it's the kind of thing that can draw away from a lot of the talks, a lot of discussions that we're going to have, that sort of thing, And so I try and keep it relatively family friendly, even though it's not really family friendly. This is rated M, right? I think this game is rated M. So I mean, there's a balance, but I do what I can. Kelly says, even with parental controls for the young people, there's too much they shouldn't be seeing on YouTube. Good lord, you're right. Do you remember the YouTube Kids debacle of like 2014? Was it the Elsa and Spider-Man thing? That was hell. That was before we had kids. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, no, it was definitely before we had kids. Our oldest was born in 2018, so it was definitely before that. But that was hell. Like, when I first heard about that and I first saw that, I was like, what the world is happening? Basically, people were for the sake of the algorithm, were making children's content that was wildly inappropriate for kids. But it followed the trends, it followed the algorithm, and it got millions and millions of monetized views. People made so much money off of making unbelievably inappropriate content for kids. That was a dark time in YouTube, and that led to a lot of the whole "is this content for children" sort of thing. which I think, honestly, as irritating it as it can be from a YouTuber perspective, that part, not a bad thing. Not really a bad thing. That said, there's still plenty of stuff that is marked for kids that just know what your kids are watching. I don't plan to let my kids just kind of go to town on online devices for another, I don't know, 10, 15 years. Maybe they can do that when they're in college. They go to college. As for the religious views, are best not going into that. I mean, I teach philosophy of religion. I go into it all the time. I go into it literally every day. So that's the other thing too, is rather than looking at religious issues from a personal experiential standpoint, I professionally look at religion from an academic standpoint. I am religious. I've got a giant Benedictine crucifix that I wear all the time. But at the same time, I take it seriously like an academic takes a subject seriously, far more so than a sort of active spiritual life. And a large part of that, honestly, is I find troublesome that I have a relatively dry spiritual life. I don't see that as a problem for myself, but I see that as a sort of objective problem, that I probably should have a more rich spirituality, which I don't really, because it's not really my kind of thing. I am a very non-feelsy academic kind of sort. I think. I don't feel almost that. I mean, like, I tell this to my students all the time because I teach philosophy. A lot of the times, my students I'm encouraging them to take stands and hold positions and defend a claim on something that they're trying to say. And very, very, very often, unfortunately often, they'll say things like, "I feel like this," or "I feel that so and so," and I just write on papers endlessly. Philosophers do not feel. We think. When you are saying something that you take to be true, saying that you feel that it is the case is weakening your point immensely. And I kind of got off on a tangent like this because I've been grading a lot of papers. But it's one of those things that it's we are habituated into treating, especially religious topics, and teaching philosophy of religion. That's the big deal. But we're habituated, culturally speaking, into thinking of religion and theology as something that you feel or experience, rather than as something you think about and you reason about and you think of objectively. So it's a hell of a nut to crack to get through to students that the kind of topics we're talking about, God's existence, the problem of evil, epistemology of religion, so how do we come to religious knowledge, the salvation theory, the relationship between divine will and human will, the fall, and all these things, talking about these things from an objective, rationalistic perspective, while not immediately and automatically dismissing claims being made, is not the kind of thing that people are used to doing these days, and that's tragic. It's really tragic. The same applies to ethics. I teach ethics on occasion as well, and that's very difficult, because most of the time, most of us are sort of conditioned to think of ethics in terms of emotivism is the technical term for it. It's the idea that to say that X is wrong is equivalent to saying I don't like X. Or even I don't approve of X, or I don't do X, or I won't do X, or anything like that. Right? We treat these as equivalent. We treat ethics as if they're preferences. And that's a really bad instinct that a lot of students have. And it's my main goal in almost all of the classes that I teach, to get students out of that way of thinking. It's hard. But all that is to say that talking about theology, talking about religion, and all of that is a large part of what I do professionally, and it's a large part of what I do on the channel and my videos and my streams and all that. But and part of that is doing so intellectually and respectfully, and that necessarily means that it's, in one sense, it can appear judgmental because I'm making objective truth claims about reality. I'm saying such and such is the case objectively. This is true, regardless of what you think about it or what you feel about it. But then at the same time, it's also, again, I like to think, I like to say, very non-judgmental, because it's not saying that what you feel about this is... I'm not pressing my feelings at you, so to speak, right? It's a weird way of conceptualizing this, perhaps, but I think that a lot of the reason that religious disagreements get so heated is because we think of them as feeling contests. That I feel something, you feel something else, and we're just sort of shouting at each other about it, rather than trying to come to any kind of objective common ground. And so, in that sense, it's because it's not about mine or your subjective feelings, emotions, preferences, that sort of thing. Because we're talking about something objective, it can be, in that sense, very non-judgmental compared to a lot of other more common religious discussions, the kind of things that go on sort of around the dinner table, around the Thanksgiving table kind of thing, if you want. Not that you would want to do that, but I do. But a crazy person who takes my work home with me. Anyway, all that is to say, like I said, that I welcome such discussions, and I don't think of it as a challenge to myself or anything like that. It's the kind of thing I do professionally in a measured sort of way. Colleen says people think that way about love. They think it's an emotion only. It's not. It's something you do more than an emotion. Yeah, absolutely. And that's straightforwardly theological, right? To love is to will the good of the other. This is why the Greek and Latin terms for love, especially in the Christian sense, the most commonly used one, especially in Latin, is caritas. Translation for agape in Greek, or love, but love is wildly ambiguous in English. Could mean all sorts of things. But in theological and ethical terminology, love is equated to charity. It's to will the good of the other. It's to do what is best for someone else for their own sake. That's what love is. Prominently, first and foremost. Now, the reasons for that might be affection, which is what we also mean by love in English. Or it might be a familial tie, which is what we also mean by love in English. Or it might be romantic, which is also what we mean by love in English. Or it might be lustful, which is also what we mean by love in English. Which that is to say, lustful in terms of physical objectification. Let's say. We also kind of mean that sometimes when we say love. So it's incredibly ambiguous, the term. And so I think you're right that first and foremost, love is kind of, it's a kind of action, but more so it's a directedness towards the good of another, for their sake, right? Rather than for your sake. It's very different to do something for somebody because you want them to be better off, and you want to help them, and you want to do something good for them because you care about them. That's very different from the example I often use is helping someone move in the hopes that they'll help you move next month. Very different. Very different. Couldn't be more different, really. One is ultimately self-serving, and the other is ultimately other-serving. Not to say that one is ultimately self-sacrificial. That's a separate layer. That's another layer on top of it. It needn't be. But it is unconcerned with the self. That's what love is. It is your priorities. It's yourself disappearing from your list of priorities in favor of the other. That's a good way of putting it.
You've been here often enough to renovate the cave.
You already know I've used this entrance in the past. I don't know if Eric's told you, But the Merchants Guild is cutthroat. Literally. I built the doors to keep rivals from following me down here and arranging accidents.
Admit it. You've been waiting to do that since we arrived.
Of course I was. After you.
Let's level some people up while we before we go on. Eileen says it's the mornings when you don't want to get up. You feel awful, yet you still Hercules your achy bum out of bed. Make your husband breakfast. He sees your pain, and you get that kiss on the cheek. When he sees your pain as thanks for your effort. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's doing something for someone else. Again, like I said, not because you expect to or seek to gain anything from it. But that because it's what they want. It's what you want for them. A remarkable example. Yeah, indeed. I agree. It really is. Yeah, love can be that motivator as well. Love can be a spectacular and a good, genuinely good motivator. What's this one? Barrier? No, I don't want to do that. I want Wall of Fire to be better. Right? Yeah. I love Wall of Fire. Keep in mind, Dedrick. Took me some years to learn that one. Yeah. Yeah. There we go.
You know, this is almost fun. Kinda like old times.
I don't recall us ever shooting people together.
Remember crashing Bartram's guild dinner? We might as well have shot him.
This isn't nearly as dangerous as pissing off my brother.
Yeah, it's I will say as well that I really like on the same note of choice as of choosing to do something that you know you want to do, whether that's for the sake of another or simply because it's the right thing to do. Regardless, the choice in the matter, the act of choosing, and the sort of sticking to it, I suppose you could also say, is very stoic in a sense. In the proper sense, in the proper historical sense of the philosophy of Stoicism, more so than of what we sort of think of as Stoic, meaning non-emotional or something like that. Ooh, there's a warden. There's a warden. Interesting.
How long are you gonna be in Orlando?
As long as this weird shit is going on, at least. Maybe longer. Why?
You'll have to stop by before Bogdan gets back. You should see your workshop.
I'll see what I can do. You know your family will kill me if I stop by, right?
They're not gonna kill you.
You always say that, and they always send assassins.
He's better. But so one of the key tenets of Stoicism, dating back particularly to Epictetus, but then also to Emperor Marcus Aurelius, is the idea that our will, that there are things that our will can control, and that there are also other things that our will can't control, and that we ought to be very careful to distinguish them. And by carefully distinguishing them, we can wrest control of things that we otherwise might think of as outside of our control. And I've always said that love is a great example of this. Because love is an act of will. It is something that you do, as we've been saying. What that ultimately and essentially means is that love is under, or can be at least, under one's control.
We'll be able to use this entrance again.
Bianca.
So rather than love being something that simply happens to you, that you are passive in it, it is the kind of thing that you can direct, that you can will. And so to say that you fall out of love with someone is... saying it that way is far too passive. That if it is kept in mind that this is an act of will, it can be willfully done. Now, with difficulty, fine, perhaps. Even against one's better judgment, and sometimes can be, perhaps. But it is this choice that we have to make. Kayleen says, every morning you choose once again to be the person you choose. Every day you choose to do something you may not want to, because it's the best for the relationship, not what's best for you. Yeah. I mean, Marcus Aurelius was no relationship expert. But he was an expert on getting up in the morning, being an emperor and a military commander. He said something brilliant like this, about this. I'm going to botch the quote, but it's something like, when you wake up in the morning and you don't want to get out of bed, think to yourself, what are you? And what are you meant for? You're a human being, meant to get up and do the work of a human being, to do what you ought to do justice, to interact with your society, to help the people around you. You are not born to cuddle under the blankets and to be warm. So decide to be what you are and what you are meant to be and what you ought to be, rather than deciding to be what you would like to be right now. The parallel here is perfect. Detrick says, for some time I made the mistake of not caring for myself in favor of serving and loving others. I did that for long. I forgot how to love myself. Losing yourself to love others can be a risk to some. That's true, and there's a reason that Christ's commandment is to love others, love your neighbor as yourself. As here is doing a lot of work. Love your neighbors in the way that you love yourself. Which is to say that you ought to love yourself because you ought to will what is best for you as a human person, as you. And that you also ought to will that for others, for their own sake. So you should love yourself just as you love others. As much as you love others, probably. And that's just as much part of being a human. Being a human being, being a person. Acknowledging that you are a human person, deserving love. And that's important. Just like anyone else might be. Respect and love are the same thing, Kathleen says. Mostly. There might be fine distinctions we can make there. One can't endure without the other, so respecting yourself is a must. Yeah, I think that they coincide in most cases. I think. At least they certainly ought to. It depends on the very specific meaning of respect here, because I think you can love someone you don't respect. And by that I mean you might find someone that you don't think is genuinely good. That you don't think is, say, worthy of respect. Someone that you don't actually respect as a person, or as an authority, or as a moral exemplar, or anything like that. Maybe there is somebody you disrespect in that sense. But you still love them insofar as you want to see them better themselves. I think that that's plausible. But in that case, maybe you do respect them in a more important sense. So you respect what they are fundamentally, or who they are, or who they could be, maybe? Something like that. So maybe I'm using a shallower term, shallower meaning of respect here. And that's possible. By But I think there is some... You can drive a conceptual wedge between the two, is what I'm saying. They're conceptually separable, even if, in most cases, they have to coincide. I think that's probably right.
You want to say something, Varric?
Andraste's ass, Bianca. You're the leak?
When I got the location, I went and had a look for myself. And I found the red lyrium, and I studied it.
Great.
You know what it does to people.
I was doing you a favor. You want to help your brother, don't you? I just wanted to figure it out.
Did you figure it out?
Actually, yes. I found out that red lyrium... It has the blight, Varric. Do you know what that means?
What? The two deadly things combined to form something super awful?
Lyrium is alive, or something like it. Blight doesn't infect minerals, only animals. I couldn't get any further on my own, so I looked for
Not
a
even
Grey
plants?
One mage. Blight and magical expertise in one, right? And I found this guy, Larius. He seemed really interested in helping my research. So I gave him a key.
Larius? He was the Grey Warden we met in Corypheus's... Oh, shit. I knew something seemed off.
I
remember
didn't
that guy.
realize until you said you found red lyrium at Hades.
He's basically a ghoul.
I came
at that
here
point.
and, well, then I went to you.
That name means something to you, Varric?
He was at the Grey Warden prison where we found Corypheus. And he definitely wasn't a mage before.
That's a really bad sign that someone's suddenly a mage.
You had to know we'd figure out what happened, Bianca. Why did you insist on coming with us?
Varric told me what people were doing with the red lyrium. I had to help make this right.
You couldn't have known what would happen.
Mafarath's balls she couldn't. I told her exactly how bad this shit was. I told her to keep away from it.
I know I screwed up, but we did fix it. It's as right as I can make it.
This isn't one of your machines. You can't just replace a part and make everything right.
No, but I can try, can't I? Or am I supposed to wallow in my mistakes forever, kicking myself, telling stories of what I should have done?
Ha!
Ooh.
As if I would tell stories about my own mistakes.
Should we be sassy? Because she's right. Wallowing in self-pity is not going to help anybody at anything. Actually trying to fix your mistakes is incredibly honorable. Kind of want to be sassy, though, because it is Varric. Yeah, let's be the sassy cowards.
Oh, for pity's sake, would you two just get a room?
Sorry, Inquisitor. We've done all we can here. Bianca, you'd better get home before someone misses you.
Varric.
Don't worry about it.
Man.
Get him killed, and I'll feed you your own eyeballs, Inquisitor.
Yeah, they definitely have a thing that neither of them is acknowledging, and it's... I don't even know what to make of that. Like... It's a little bit adorable, but it's also, like... It's also a little frustrating. Because I at least... It seems like... It's one of those things where you at least wish they would clear the air, right? Oh, bacon jerky. Smacking. So I have a dehydrator, but it's a pain to use. It's a bit of a pain to use because it's a big old thing that you gotta stack together and clean and such. But I also have a Ninja Foodie, which is like an instant pot air fryer combo, and I just got a dehydrator rack insert for the thing.
Must have been abandoned centuries ago, and yet it remains relatively intact.
Which is pretty great.
Dwarven architecture certainly is sturdy.
I've been giving it a try these last couple of days. I've so far only done bacon and salmon. I did some smoked salmon that I put in the dehydrator, made like basically lox jerky for tomorrow, appropriately for Friday. It is not Lent anymore. It is still Friday. So that'll be my little snack for tomorrow. But I've got a cut of beef that I'm gonna do for beef jerky. I'm gonna try it on there. Relatively small. My full size dehydrator can fit a nice like a nice 3-pound roast worth of beef jerky. But what I have currently, I think it's just under 2 pounds. It's a little bit smaller, so it should fit on the smaller dehydrator rack insert. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to trying and seeing how it does. Seeing how it does at beef jerky. I've made my own beef jerky since I could chew it, basically. My mom and my aunt both have been making their own beef jerky with a food dehydrator kind of style for a very long time, for years, and always loved it. Absolutely love it. I teethed on beef jerky, and so it's an old family tradition, I guess, at this point. Yeah. And so I'm making, like I said, I should. We'll see how the thing works, but I should be able to make some actual beef jerky proper this weekend, maybe. Gotta marinate some. Bacon jerky is very good, though. Turns out really good. All right, let's get out of here. No hunt for new snacks in the house. I just totally recommend a dehydrator. They're usually pretty cheap. They're cheap enough by themselves, and it's fantastic for making snacks. Whether that's meats especially, but also like fruits and vegetables. Pineapple slices work great. Pineapple slices, apples. What else have I done recently? I tried celery. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your time. Some of the other things I've done on the thing. Oh, it's not a snack. Dear God, don't try this as a snack. But it works really well for like seasoning things. I've only done this once or twice. Onion petals, dehydrated onion petals. They work really well as like for like chopping up or pulling or shredding into like seasonings. Works really, really well. They keep forever. Anything you dehydrate keeps basically forever. So long as you let it dehydrate all the way, it basically will never go bad. Unless it like gets moldy or something, which is uncommon. Doesn't usually happen. Yeah, if you especially if you like savory snacks, if you're a savory snack kind of household, anything that you throw onto a dehydrator is fantastic. It's even fruit that you put on there. You don't want to do like overly juicy fruits. Like I did peaches once, like peach slices once, and it didn't work very well. It took forever, and it didn't really result in much. The juiciest thing I would recommend is pineapple, and even there, you're pushing it. You want to make sure there's a lot of the juices are out of it already. Yeah, I love beef jerky, and really just dehydrating just anything that'll throw on there. Anything that'll go on there. Let's see. Oh wait, what's this? What is that? We have to talk to Varric. That's right. Of course we do. Yeah. This is actually pretty simple. It's just like, cause I got one of those like those big packages of the ends, like bacon ends and pieces, which is like half the price per pound as usual, and it's all weird oblong shapes and just like chopped pieces and stuff. But if you throw it on the dehydrator, put it on there for if you have variable temperature, turn it up a little bit. For like this was like 4 hours. It worked great. And man, works. I didn't put any seasoning on it aside from just the natural smokiness of bacon. I might next time. I have before when I've made bacon jerky. I've used the same like teriyaki marinade I use for the beef, which works fine. It's pretty good, but just by itself works perfectly okay. If you like bacon, this is great. Yeah, dehydrated fruit is crazy expensive. It's well worth it at home. The problem with fruit, though, like I said, is it takes a long time. It's a very long time 'cause it's so juicy. Apples, though. Apples are relatively quick. If you slice and do relatively thin slices, it won't crisp. I don't know how they do that. They probably bake it too. But it'll be nice, thin, very, very flavorful because it concentrates it. But that sort of thing. Pretty good, pretty straightforward. Much cheaper. So much cheaper. I'm taking sandwich turkey and a piece of real cheese, making rolls with them for late night snacks. That's a good idea. Keeps away from the carbs and late night starch. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because, you don't want to carbo load before bed unless you're like getting up for an athletic event in the morning. It's not a good idea. All right, let's see.
I'm glad to have answers, but shit. The second she showed up here, I knew. I let this mess happen. I gave her the tig. I am not good at dealing with shit like this.
Oh, strawberries and bananas are the favorite. Pineapple's great. Bananas, I guess I probably just use two bananas that are too ripe usually, because they always sort of like start falling apart. Strawberries I've done. That works well. That's pretty good. The problem with strawberries is excuse me. The problem with strawberries and dehydrating them is not eating them in the process, which as a family we have a problem with that. Not eating strawberries when they're fresh. We are all born and raised Floridians, all 5 of us, 5 now, and all 3 of our kids have been born in the middle of strawberry season. Oh, they're very much strawberry kids. They love strawberries. Yeah, let's give Varric some Varric-y advice. Yeah. What are your strengths, right? Right?
You managed to talk your way out of most things.
That's what I do, isn't it? If Cassandra hadn't dragged me here, I'd be in Kirkwall right now, pretending none of this was happening.
You know that's not true. You've worked as hard as any of us to stop Corypheus.
Is that true? I don't even know anymore. Thank you for your help back there.
After all this, do you think you'll see Bianca again?
I always do.
Always do. Nice. Ooh, yeah, candied bacon is really good. Can't say no to candied bacon. So brown sugar, when I do candied bacon, it's actually been a while since I have. I should again.
Yes.
Usually what I'll do is I will use either brown sugar and black pepper. Just like coarse ground black pepper and press that in with the brown sugar. That's perfect. That's fantastic. I have done that with, instead of black pepper, just a tiny little bit of cayenne pepper. Nobody else likes that but me, because I'm the spicy person. I'm the spicy liking person in the family. Because 3 kids 4 and under, they're not going to be liking super spicy stuff. So, but I digress. Or maple syrup. Just do candied bacon, but instead of brown sugar, or maybe in addition, like less brown sugar, maple syrup. It still candies the same way, especially if you still have a little bit of the brown sugar in there. But it adds to the flavor. Really, the mapliness just. What more can I say? And since my grandma butt would be the size of Texas if I ate that many carbs. Well, yeah, a little bit at a time. That's the other thing with like candied bacon is, in my experience at least, unless you're a crazy person, it's possible. You can probably get away with eating just like 1 or 2 slices and be satisfied. Because it's so rich, there's a lot to it. You can stop. You don't just keep munching forever. The other thing I've done is I've used candied bacon for other things. like you make a candied bacon weave. Like make a candied bacon weave, so you weave bacon together into like a plate. And I've used that as taco shells. Which is some of the most ridiculous things that I've done. I've always wanted to do as a pie crust. Like candied bacon over the top of like a pecan pie. But I also don't want to get diabetes.
Any visiting dignitaries I should watch out for?
Ban Vigard of Ferelden is visiting. An honor, to be sure. Please show no alarm if you hear shouting in his quarters at night.
Shouting?
His lordship spent half a year with his lands under siege by Darkspawn during the Ferelden Blight.
Oh.
His wife informs me the ban still sleeps rather poorly.
Oof. That's rough. Okay, good night, then. I'm actually going to wrap up very shortly. I can help you out at the moment. Need anything for, especially, I don't know, how's Monica doing? I'm assuming that she's also going to bed with you. Do you have anything to do on the map? No. No, I don't. Alright, so I think, in that case, what we'll do in the last few minutes, I want to plan out what we're doing next. Then, I think we can head out. Head out and pick up next time. Oh, she's asleep! Oh, she's asleep. So, there's a couple of things that we can do next time. There are these side quests in the Elven Ruins over here in this area. There's two of those things. And then we can also do some more side quests in the other areas, maybe in Orlais, Orlesian areas, next week. Before we head to the Arbor Wilds, what pride had wrought. Now, the other open question is whether we do that. So next week, like I said, we're going to do some more side quests over in this area, in Orlais. Because there's not many more side quests to do. Well, there's actually some in the Storm Coast. Yeah, maybe. But mostly over in the Orlesian side of the map. So that's an option. Then the other option is, so after that, we'll do some side quests and stuff next week. Then, the following week, we can either go over there to what Pride hath wrought over that way, or we can do one or the other of the major, we can start one or the other of the major story DLCs. So either Disaster in the Deep Roads or Frostback Basin. Frostback Basin is much longer, if anyone's not familiar. It's a very long DLC. It'll probably be 3 or 4 sessions, or 3 or 4 streams, maybe more. Disaster in the Deep Roads probably will just be 1 or 2. Probably won't even take up 2 full sessions. It's shorter, but it's very, difficult combat. So, it might take me a little bit to fight through things. Then again, I'm playing this on, easy or normal, because I want to be able to talk to you guys while I'm fighting things. So, we'll see. But we might do that one. We might do one or the other of these. We might start that, not next week, but the week after that. So, that's something to think about, something to keep in mind, something you might want to consider. And if you have a preference for either of these, do let me know, whether that's here, or in the comments, or on the Facebook page, or on the Discord, or whatever. So, since it is getting very awfully close to midnight, and I want to go and say goodnight to everybody, I'll say goodnight to everyone here first. So, thank you once again for joining me tonight. I had a great time. We had some great talks. We get stuck in the hinterlands, because that's what one does in Dragon Age Inquisition. And I hope to see you guys on Monday as we continue Knights of the Old Republic. We're going to finish up. Anything on Dantooine. And then, once we're done on Dantooine, we get to make a big decision about what planet to go to next. I'm, again, torn between Tatooine and Kashyyyk. So, again, if anybody watching that one or is planning on joining us has any input about what we should do, where we should go next on Monday, do let me know. All right. That's all I have for tonight. I cannot believe I didn't even say the word abortion once, given the news tonight, but there it is. There's one. Maybe we'll talk about it next week. Who knows? Anyway, Anyway, once things have settled a bit. Anyway, thank you all for joining me once again. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and see you all next time. Good night.